Well, hello, friends, neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here. Welcome down to the Whiskey Nook. Today we're going to have a little fun. We're going to crack open a Booker's bourbon. I admit, opening up a new Booker's is one of the best parts of any year. Up here, we only get one batch per year. We don't get 3 or 4 or whatever manages to come out in the US, but I'll take the one. And this will be just opening and just, first thoughts. It's not really a review, but we'll give some thoughts on this one. Now, this is 2020-01. It's 2020-01E for export market, but if it's the same as what came out in the US, then this is Granny's batch. So we'll open it up. We'll share some thoughts. If you have any Bookers, pour some. Join the fun.
3, 4.
Well, thanks for staying with me. I have to say I got in a little bit of trouble, I think, last year when I opened up 2019-01E, saying, well, I don't think it's Teresa's batch. It's the export. A lot of people said, yeah, but it's the same age, same strength, so very likely it's Teresa's batch. And very likely that is true. I just wish someone with authority could tell me for sure, right? If it was or if it really is a slightly different release for export markets. Either way, whiskey says what it does, and I'll give you my thoughts. So this is Booker's 2020-01E. If it's Granny's batch, I'll put the details down below. Up here, different color thing. It doesn't come with a nice card, but it does come in the fun wooden box. But I'll put the details of the the warehouses that they release. Love going to their website and reading what Freddie No has to say about it. Just very quickly, this is 6 years, 4 months, and it's 63.2%. Being Granny's batch, I only know what I read on this site. Fred's reading the quote, Fred No, and he's talking about his grandmother, and then his Booker, his dad's mom, and it was Margaret Beam No. I think, was she the youngest child from Jim Beam? Boy, I should know my history, but it's a really sweet story. It talks about how influential that she was on, Booker No and his involvement and instrumental in getting him his first work in the distillery. And it's a really nice connection. So it's fun to have a batch that's kind of a nod to Freddie No's grandmother. Let's talk whiskey. Let's see what we get. Very expressive, bright nose. Now, I just cracked it and poured it. Probably needs to open up, but boy, it's got, some vanillas, but right away, I'm getting some pretty characteristic Jim Beam peanut. I don't know, I'm becoming, more aware of that as I go on in this whiskey journey, but it's sure coming up right up top. Light caramels, toffees, a little bit of watery smoke, something going on. But quite a bit of peanut. You know what? I was going to do it after, but let's kind of do this back and forth. It's the end of Teresa's batch. I got some thoughts on Teresa's batch, if it's Teresa's batch. This is, 2019-01, but also E for export. I've had, that's happens to me almost all the time. You get to the end of the bottle, you think, oh, there's just a little left, and you pour it out for 62.95%. That's too much whiskey. Now, it's in the bottle, end of life, you might want to say, very much constrained compared to this. It's sour. Yeah, it's definitely sour. A little sour cherry, a little more constrained, whereas right off the top, this is lighter, peanutty, vanilla. Yeah, quite just much lighter on the nose. Let's try the palate. Cheers. Oh. I tell you, Booker sings my tune. It's just so good. Of course, it's a monster, right? It's bold. It's got a lot of strength from alcohol burning down the sides, hugging the chest, but but the flavors that are playing around are this time it's like a lighter caramel, like a Werther's toffee caramel, definite peanut, char, smoke, something going on. That's an awesome bourbon. Really, really good. There's some sweetness in there in this one. I'll come back to it. But I want to try it against, Teresa, if this is Teresa's batch, it got slammed online. I've been enjoying it. So in this context, though, I'm getting some bitterness. I had a thought about this I was going to share maybe at the end about why I think a lot of people get bitterness. It's got some blackened cooked down cherry. Oh, there are some good things in here. Yeah, thicker, almost an edge of black licorice. All right, back to what we're talking today. Granny's batch. I just have to have a quick sip. I want to try it with a bit of water. It can stand up to a bit of water, of course. And I'm going to water the Teresa's batch. I gave it more water because I poured more, that's all. Trying to water them in a similar fashion. Let them sit. Yeah. If you've never tried a cask strength whiskey, it's tough to recommend, really, because it takes, I think, a little bit in the journey to go, okay, I'm getting at all the rich. I mean, this is clearly unfiltered, not clearly. You should know, the way this is picked is they pick a variety of casks, usually in the center of the warehouse, but across warehouses. I think this one has a lot of warehouse L in it, I think. I'll put the details, but they're deliberately selected casks that are, then vatted together and released. And they're they don't just grab 50,000 barrels and dump them and whatever comes out. I mean, it is a process. They select them for if it's the nose that it's going to add or it's the body characteristic. It's quite a process. So here, even though I know it's a marketing gag, in this case, small batch means something. The nose, it didn't get crushed by water, but it didn't really get any better. This nose continues to move into a little bit of bitterness. Let's try the palate for Granny's batch. Well, that was good. That was a little creamier. That was a little, yeah, that kind of lengthened that, toffee experience. You're like, oh, okay, that kind of before the spice. Spice even now is moving across my palate. Before it was really held up kind of on the edges. It can be my reaction to cask strength to take really small sips and it moves a little more quickly across the tongue. Here, I can hold it longer. It's good. It's really good. And it held up the water well. I'll try Teresa's batch and see what water does to it. Nose isn't very good right now. By that, I mean it's still a little astringent, a little bitter in the nose. And that's where I want to get to. I'm going to comment on that. Basically, I don't like it very much right now with water. But you probably tuned in for what I was holding up. Granny's batch, 2020-01E. It's the export. Only one we got up here in Canada. Likely the same. Likely. This is a great bottle. Great release. If you're a Booker's fan, I think it's a must-have. I'm always a year behind at least because I wait till it gets on sale. Got this from Sierra Springs. Man, what did I pay? $69? Something like that, Canadian? Great price. Really just a phenomenal price for a bottle like this. I like it. And in this context, I actually like it more than this batch quite a bit. It really has dropped some of the bitterness and the astringency. So if you're a fan of Booker's, I can't see why you wouldn't want to grab a bottle. Thanks. So I just wanted to, I kind of hedged on this because I didn't want to rant without giving you some clear thoughts on this. I know it's not a review, right? I just cracked it, but I love it. I'm probably going to love it all the way through. This one, the 1901, in a blind, I picked it as my favorite cask strength bourbon sometime mid-year last year, and I have continued to enjoy it. But you saw kind of my reaction when I hit it with water. And it was somewhere mid-bottle that I can't remember what I was doing, but I wanted to press it more. So I added more water. Because I generally, there are some whiskeys clearly better with water. But like this kind of stuff, I'd rather take small sips, nurse it along through an evening or something like that, than to water. I've always liked that. So I heard a lot of people talk about the bitterness in Teresa's batch. But with water, I will say my palate absolutely, it falls apart and goes into bitterness. And I finally begun to, what I think, understand why it gets beat up a ton online. Because, as any good reviewer would do, you have to put water on it to see what other layers or flavors come out. And my experience here is that with water, this older batch falls apart. Now, what's nice, totally early thoughts, totally, is that this Granny's batch, which is a little sweeter, a little more honey, a little more, honey roasted peanuts, a little less fruit, a little less cherry than this other batch. Didn't fall apart at all with water. It's in fact a little bit creamier. So probably this would get more love. Now I haven't checked out a lot of reviews on it. I will now. I usually do as I'm getting to know a bottle and I start to like, oh, who else has talked about it? This was just, I got it on a steel and I wanted to crack it open as I move into bourbon over the next month. Hey, thanks for joining me here. I hope I have at least piqued your interest about Booker's if you haven't had it. It's worth a dram or a sample from a friend. It's strong, it's bold, it's the kind of thing that if you haven't had it, might take a little while to get used to, but I think it's worth a try. Thanks for joining me. You guys have a fantastic week.